It came from the desire to craft a love story, to dedicate a film to a love story, and how love is born, and to look very carefully at that, you know, to depart from the love at first sight convention, and to look at desire, also to film desire. So the present of a love story being born, but also the memory of a love story, like how, also the philosophy, the politics of a love story. So yeah, that was the initial spark. Yeah, it came very early in the process that this love dialogue would also be a creative dialogue, and that we would mix both of those dynamics, but still with a very strong common point, that is that I wanted to craft a film with equality, a love story with equality, and also, you know, so not playing with gender domination, and also not playing with intellectual domination, even though it's an artist model situation, so usually there's kind of power dynamic going on here, and also not playing with social hierarchy. So to craft this kind of new storytelling, not relying on the dynamic of conflict, to create new emotions and a more surprising journey for the audience. And really thought a lot about how the love dialogue between the characters would also become the love dialogue between the viewer and the film. So Eloise is this aristocrat woman. The painter, well, she's a painter, so I mean, at least she got economical autonomy, and maybe she can make some choices for herself, but she's not in the same position. And then there's the servant. And of course, there's social hierarchy, but it's just that the narrative isn't pushing these buttons. So, for instance, the servant character will never be an accessory. You know, you won't see her with a tray being like the silhouette. She won't be the usual servant character in films or even in the theater at this time. So it's not about her being an antagonist, it's not about her listening to doors, or it's really also a film about friendship, and also how sorority can abolish social hierarchy sometimes. Well, it's the second half of the 18th century, before the French Revolution, and it was mostly for a matter of art history, because at that particular moment there were hundreds of women painters in France, in Europe, here. And I was ignorant about that, actually. When I began my research, I came upon all these amazing painters, discovered the body work, and I was like, oh, this has to take place at this moment, because we're going to tell about this. Because we've always been told, like, progress for women would be something linear, you know, we get always more opportunity, and when you look at art history, for instance, no, it's cycles. And so there was a cultural moment at the time with strong opportunities for women artists, and then there was the backlash. And as we are going through a cultural shift for these past years, being told that, okay, now we're empowering, we're being listened to, we can definitely feel the backlash also, and so that's also why it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, we worked, there's very few characters. There's also a man set, and we keep exploring the same room with the same characters, and the film is built on those variations. So we were always in the workshop of the painter, looking at the model, with the DP looking at them and looking at each other. And it was very, it would definitely, it embodied the idea of the film. The way the film has been made resembles actually what's on screen. And that was a very powerful, playful way to make cinema. It's my first collaboration with the DP, Claire Maton. And it was a very strong encounter, and we dedicated a lot of time and to the lighting in the film. And regarding the actresses, the film was written with Adele and Elle in mind for that character, and there was also the will, as I was going to look at somebody that I've been working with and I know very well, to actually meet somebody. And that's how Noémie Merlan came in. So there was, yeah, this very different dynamic on the set. Well, the challenge was that this is not an adaptation from a book or from, it's an original story set in the past, which is rather unusual. And it's about a painter, and I could have easily taken one of the painters that have been erased by art history and have those canvas, you know, in the style of being really accurate. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to invent a painter so that we would talk about them all, and so that we would depart also from the biopic dynamic of the exceptional woman making it in this hard world. I work with a sociologist of the art rather than an historian to actually build this character in the most accurate way. I didn't want the film to be anachronistic in any way, and it's not. So sometimes I'm told, like, oh, the costume design, you give them pockets, this is like modern, and I'm like, no, they had pockets at the time, and then 19th century, you know, took off our pockets, and now we didn't even got it actually back, you know. So yeah, to be really accurate, to give back their present and the present to this past time without being anachronistic. And regarding the painting, inventing a painter, that's rarely been done, and now I know why, because it is so difficult. But I'm glad that I was ignorant of the difficulty, because we were aware that we were saying 2018th century, and, you know, we work with a contemporary painter who is 30 years old, what is the age of the character, and I felt it was really important. She's more a specialist of the 19th century method for painting, so she had to do this whole work, and we just invented this style, this kind of avant-garde in a way. But it was important for me that the painting would actually belong to the language of the film, the grammar of the film, its stylistic. But each canvas is like 80 hours of work, and it's cinema, so we shot not, of course, chronologically. So there's like 12 frames of Adele. There's a whole exhibition, actually, it's going throughout Europe and the world, and it's a lot of work, yeah. It has a lot to do, yeah, with the sound, with for instance, it's breathing. Like, I'm being really accurate about how they breathe, like inhaling or exhaling. It's not the same thing if you end a scene on an exhalation or an inhalation. So I'm giving them very accurate steps that they have to take. Like, for instance, maybe intimacy is about, like, the intimacy of taking somebody in your arm or going to kiss somebody is about the way how many steps are you gonna take? And that's the kind of indication I'm doing. It's like, it's gonna be in 5 or in 6. And if it's in 5, then it's not at all the same, because it's like 5 would be, and there's a suspension to it, whereas 6, that's another dynamic. So it's those kind of things, and being, believing that everything is about, is putting up a show with all the tools of cinema, just to give the highest emotional journey possible with just grabbing somebody else's hand, which I think is a way to definitely recollect what it's like to fall in love, because that's what I want to do with the film. It's like go through the process of falling in love and make the audience go through that process that they know. And what do you remember when you fell in love? You will remember those steps more, maybe, than this kiss. That's how you will tell. So yeah, trying to use all the tools of cinema to recreate that with pleasure.